They said you don't always follow their instructions.
I never follow them. They think I am absolutely crazy, and I am. I am totally crazy. Hi, I'm Lev Gonick, Chief Information Officer at Arizona State University. Throughout our series, we interview leaders, technologists, and experts to explore the future of tech and innovation from the back seat of a Waymo autonomous vehicle. Today, I'm picking up Angela Siefer, who serves as Executive Director of the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. Angela's efforts to advance digital inclusion have reached communities across the country and are coming here to Arizona. Let's grab Angela to learn more. Welcome, Angela. Good to have you with us.
Hi, Lev. I can't believe I'm in a Waymo.
This is your first, isn't it?
It is my first time, and I'm like, that steering wheel is moving up.
What's your story, your personal story,
Yep.
and how did you find fellow travelers along the way?
I'm in Toledo, Ohio, is where I went to school. And at the University of Toledo, this professor was active in the community, and we did a survey of community-based organizations. How can the university support your efforts? And even back then, this would have been 28 years ago, they said technology with our constituents. And we're like, oh, interesting. Technology with the folks that they work with. So their folks, they wanted to be able to put some things online, and they couldn't because the people that they served were not participating in the online world at that time.
I imagine that actually wasn't obvious 28 years ago.
No, absolutely not. And so even when we started that, it's not like there were lots of folks joining that effort. But then we started to learn there were other things going on around the country, and we weren't by ourselves, and that there was an effort that we needed the federal government to understand what was happening at that local level. And so that's why we created the National Digital Inclusion Alliance.
Both education and advocacy.
Yes.
This conversation that we have in the Carpool Convos is really around innovation and talking about the ways in which technologies like a autonomous AI vehicle can really help us think about the art of the possible, and really thinking about different ways in which community members can use technology. And so, one of the things I know and I want to invite you to talk a little bit about is the way that you and your colleagues at the National Digital Inclusion Alliance have really been working for decades now on a way of thinking about inclusive excellence, the ways in which we leverage technology to make sure that all members of the community have access to the internet.
Trust is a huge ingredient. Technology is confusing, it's intimidating, and in fact hurts people sometimes.
Right.
And so you need to be able to trust where that advice is coming from. We need the appropriate device. Low-income families most likely to have a mobile phone, but it doesn't always meet your needs. If you're in school, you're working on learning new skills for a job. As I get older, I need a bigger screen. I just can't. The smaller screens just don't do it. And then the actual skills themselves. And so the skills part of this is never ending. All of us constantly learning new digital skills. And what in this digital equity space is what we often call a digital navigator. So it's a human who can help guide you through this use of the internet and the different technologies and the different applications. Because it is so much and it can feel overwhelming, having that person to turn to has been life-changing for so many people across the U.S. So AI will cause the next digital divide, 100%. I have no doubt about that. And so we have to be able to integrate it into basic digital skills training so that people aren't scared of it. Yes, you need to understand how to use it, right? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. You should just understand what the barriers are, what the value is, and in fact, how to use it safely. And so if we don't integrate it in, and if we shut people off from it because we think it's too dangerous, they're going to get further left behind.
Yeah, I think I would make the case, I wonder if you would agree, that actually, while the first set of digital divides were traumatic in terms of its impact on those communities directly, and of course, on the gap between the haves and the have-nots, that maybe AI, in terms of a core digital literacy, may actually be even more impactful than the basic navigation of how to use, the internet in its sort of first, instantiation. Would you agree, or would you take issue with the way I framed it?
I think that's possible, and I think it's possible because up to recently, not everything had been online. You could kind of get away with not being online.
Yes.
But I would say you can actually do that now. And as AI is integrating into more and more of everything, you really can't get away with not.
So if our history, yours and mine together, is a bit of a timeline here, My sense is that we've had two inflection points, one bigger, obviously, than the other.
Yep.
The first was the National Broadband Plan, which
Right.
included insights about those being left behind. At that moment in time, in 2008, 9, 10, what was the state of play in terms of the communities of practice that you were just referring to?
They were scattered around the country. Some of them had federal money, which is how I got a close relationship with you, because I was helping your organization with one of those grants. But they were often trying to figure out how to help those organizations to sustain that work.
Right.
And there wasn't enough awareness of it.
And this, it turns out, of course, is one of the big challenges to this day.
It isn't.
Is the Everfresh challenge and trying to figure out strategies for working with communities. But that second inflection point clearly was COVID, and you've already made mention of how important that was. At that moment in time, obviously, everyone realized that it was table stakes conversation. We witnessed what happened when our world as we knew it basically had to get flipped.
Right.
Maybe you can describe kind of what was the state of play as we were, approaching March of 2020, just in terms of the communities of practice that had already been mobilized and engaged through the National Digital Inclusion Alliance and many, many others.
Yeah, so NDIA gathers up those who are doing this work on the ground, and we knew of about 100 organizations at that time.
Right.
And then more folks realized, oh my gosh, I have to help my community be able to use this incredible tool, because I'm using that tool, so I need them to be able to use that tool because I know what it can do for folks. You can order your groceries at that time. You had needed it in order to be able to request a vaccine, right? It was essential to life, education, work, everything.
Next, say 1 to 3 years, what gives you the most hope in terms of what the opportunities are for all of us to continue to shrink the gap between those who have tools that are affordable tools and that can use the tools for their needs? What are some of the most exciting and important things that we can look forward to?
I'm really thrilled with seeing how many digital inclusion coalitions have formed around the country. We've been tracking them, and so we did a survey where now our estimate is there's over 100 of them across the U.S., and those are in local communities, metro regions, statewide, and they are really figuring out who's doing what. Who's providing services in terms of skills and devices and connectivity to older adults in a particular neighborhood who speak a particular language? Who's doing that for the youth? Right? Who's doing that in different places? Or maybe somebody only does devices, but somebody else is really great at figuring out connectivity. So as you know who those different parts are and they talk to each other, that's how we keep this work going past this federal investment.
What's your take on what's going on in Arizona, if you don't mind me asking, in front of all of your friends who are going to be watching this?
I love the hives concept.
Okay.
That's really exciting.
What? Just for those who haven't seen a hive here in Arizona, why don't you just briefly describe your own experience?
Yeah, my understanding of the hive is that it's that community space where folks can come together and learn together.
The power that we're observing in the hives that are led by one of our key coalition builders here, Aaron Carr Jordan, is actually the network of the hives. So the hives serve the community, like you indicated, and what's beautiful to see is that the network of the hives are actually peers helping each other figure out how to continue to solve.
I love it.
The program. Any reflections? Obviously, about a third of our geography here is tribal territories, sovereign nations here. Have you seen progress, and what gives you hope in terms of the continued work to advance digital knowledge and digital experiences in those communities?
I think we all have a lot to learn from the digital inclusion work that's occurring in tribes and on tribal lands, because there's a connection and a community in those spaces where they're able to bring that trust factor in a different method. So for example, at Gila River, they have their own internet service provider, and because folks contact that internet service provider for the connectivity, but then integrated into that is a digital navigator.
Know you're here in part to check out this fabulous venue that you've selected for your national meeting of the NDIA. Why'd you choose Gila River?
It's a perfect place for us to host an event about access to the internet and the ability to use it for health, education, work, all the things that we use the internet for. And not only does Gila River have an amazing program, But Phoenix has amazing programs. The state of Arizona is a leader, and there's so much going on here around digital equity that we thought this was the perfect place to bring everybody else from around the country who's working on these issues to share best practices, strategies, so we can all do our best to make sure more folks understand how to use it and to do whatever they need to do in life.
Well, I hope all of you who are watching will make sure that you make this a priority to come out to the NDIA meeting. Remind us again the dates.
May 20th to the 22nd, and it's all on the NDIA website, which is at digitalinclusion.org.
Okay, so you heard it here. Please come on out and join us at ASU, joining Angela and the entire NDIA community. We look forward to having you here, and thanks again for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am totally crazy. But I have Angela, and she's not that crazy, but she's out there. She's out there.
I will attempt to follow.
All right, so here's. And what were you thinking?
I was thinking, stay focused in the conversation with Lev. Do not be distracted by the car backing up all by itself.
And you can kind of just see, basically what you're seeing is the LiDAR, which is what the car is seeing. She plays chicken really well with the cars that have stopped here.